There's a ton of noise out there. So, how do you get decision makers to pay attention to your brand? Start a podcast and invite your ideal clients to be guests on your show. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show. Welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. This is really going to be a really fun episode for me. This is going to be a part of our new series that we're doing called Content-Based Networking. I'm joined today by Matt Heinz, the president of Heinz Marketing, and just in my book, one of the B2B marketing OGs. And so Matt, how are you doing today, man?
I am good. No one has ever called me an OG. I don't know how to think about that, but I'll try it on. It's fine.
I thought, as I said it, I thought, man, that might be offensive. But I meant it, but with nothing but the highest of praise.
I appreciate
since
it.
I've been in B2B marketing, you have been.
For anyone that knows me and has hung around with me for a while, the idea that someone might call me a gangster is a little laughable. It's kind of why I'm laughing. I'll take it.
You've got a farm in your backyard, right? Like you guys have chickens or some sort of. I've only heard stories. I don't think you've ever actually.
No, we have chickens. We have rabbits. We've got my wife has a full garden. I literally this past weekend, I'm building her a greenhouse in the backyard. So, we do. We're much more farmer than gangster, I guess. But OF doesn't sound as good as OG.
It doesn't roll off the tongue as well.
No.
You're right. Awesome, Matt. So you've got your own podcast, Sales Pipeline Radio, which is one of my go-to podcasts. I love your show. And we've talked before about how, the podcast is a really cool channel for you to be able to collaborate with folks that you want to connect with. And so by collaborating with them to feature them on the show, it's a value to them. It's also content for you. And then you walk away with having a relationship with the person that you collaborated on. But the thing that I think is interesting about all the different types of content that you're doing, Matt, is a lot of your content, not just your podcast, is collaborative in nature. And when we talk about content-based networking, the core of it is, building meaningful relationships by collaborating with the people that you want to know, essentially like reverse engineering the network of people that you want to have, professionally, or it can be applied personally, but I think you're doing an exceptional job of your time in the industry and all the conferences that you speak at. Obviously that helps, build your thought leadership and your network. But the collaborative content you're creating is what I want to focus this episode on. And so you said the first thing that you think about whenever you're going into a collaborative content project is having an understanding of the why and making sure that everyone involved in the collaboration knows kind of what is to be expected. And then you also kind of land on how are we going to make this content stand out? We don't want it to look the same. Can you go into that and unpack that for the folks listening?
Yeah, I think any partnership you go into with someone, whether it's creating content or, joint go-to-market or, selecting a channel partner, it's really important that you are really explicit with each other about what you want out of the partnership. I think assumptions don't really help you. And if you assume that someone wants something and they end up wanting something different, you may or may not be willing or prepared to deliver that. And so that can create a lot of inefficiency and failed partnerships. And, for example, like if you're creating content together, if we find a partner with content, like, okay, are they doing it because they want to capture leads, or is their entire focus to put whatever content we create behind a form? Okay, that's fine. It's good to know up front. Some people say, look, we're trying to get our name associated with this topic. And so the more eyeballs we get on the content, the more awareness we can get associated with this. That's their objective. Great. We have some people that come to us and say, we want to get as many people from your database registered as our leads as possible, where they're literally what they want is access to our list. And, there are challenges with kind of moving forward in a partnership like that. But boy, do I appreciate knowing that up front. as opposed to later on when someone's like, well, you're not promoting it enough. The whole reason we did this is we wanted access to your list. Well, that wasn't up front, And so I think that whether you're, working with someone like us, a service industry, or someone who's, got a following, or whether you're a tech company working with another tech company to co-create content, have that explicit objectives conversation up front and make sure that even if you have different objectives, which is fine, make sure that those differing objectives can be symbiotic and make sure that you can both move forward with the same project to achieve those results.
Yeah, I love that. The second thing you talked about, Matt, when we were talking about this offline, is this idea of not just sharing insights, but actually sharing tangible, like actionable takeaways for the person consuming, thinking about, who's going to be reading or listening or taking in this content. And we want to make that actionable. Can you talk about how that fleshes itself out as you're collaborating with partners to create content?
Yeah, I think that, knowing what to do with new information is really important, right? I mean, especially, I guess, if you are in a somewhat mature market that's already noisy. I mean, the world does not need another generic state of ABM report, right? I mean, there's a million of them, and simply telling people, hey, more and more people are trying ABM, like that's not that interesting, right? And so what's the new insight you're bringing to the table? And then in addition to insights, how do you tell people what to do next with that insight? How do you translate insight into action? It can be a checklist. It could be a workbook. It could be, maybe it's a maturity model where you can say, yeah, we found people along this entire continuum of sophistication, figure out where you are on it by answering these couple questions. And then based on where you are, there are specific implications of where you should be next or what you should be doing next. And I think that that's just, not only does it generate better, more useful content, I think it reflects better on the people creating the content, and it becomes more engaging for those that are receiving it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's something I have always appreciated, even just I think you even do a good job with this, Matt, in your LinkedIn content, following you on LinkedIn and seeing the status updates that you're putting out. You're not just sharing insights, but you're sharing kind of how the action that we as the consumer of that content can take. And I think so it comes through both in your collaborative content and just the content I see you putting out on LinkedIn. So I love that you mentioned that. Where I want to land the plane and kind of close us off here today, Matt, is I'd love to talk through some different examples of collaborative content that you've done. You shared a couple of them offline. I think just hearing your creativity, I know that some folks come to you and they, because of your kind of position in the market, people are coming to you and bringing you opportunities to do collaborative content. But what are some of the different projects that you've done with folks to get people thinking about, okay, what are other ways other than podcasts that you can collaboratively create content with folks?
Yeah. Well, first of all, podcasts, I continue to be amazed and just shocked and humbled by, what podcasts have grown to, as a communication medium. And it shows no sign of stopping, quite frankly. So, your team at Sweetfish, you guys produce an amazing number of, not just number, but quality of podcasts that are part of my regular listening. I think, it's when you create a platform and a forum for an audience, you create an opportunity for people to be part of that audience, right? And I don't care if you have 1 million listeners or 10 listeners, if you've got a content platform, like invite your customers and your prospects to be part of that, right? I mean, it's a great opportunity to get them into a platform that they didn't have before, to show them that you appreciate them, to show them that you're willing to share some of your finite airtime, so to speak, with them as well.
Yeah.
Research always works well. I think, when you guys can say, hey, we asked 500 ABM, practitioners to talk about what their challenges are to scaling ABM, be it from campaigns to part of the broader culture. Like, that's interesting. Having some qualitative feedback as well. I mean, to be able to not ask your customers what keeps them up at night, but to tell them what should be keeping them up at night. So if you can legitimately go to your audience and say, I talk to people that are running marketing operations all day long, and after having those conversations all year, here are the 3 things I hear most often that keep them up at night, right? I mean, so you are now condensing a set of information down to 3 bullet points, and you can deep dive on those 3 bullet points as well. I think that sometimes we think of content as something that you publish and move on from, as opposed to an ongoing conversation. So, thinking about content as an opportunity to have sort of this never-ending dialogue with your audience, with your industry, with your customers is part of content as well. And the cool thing about that is if you're providing value and they're providing value back, they're creating content with you, for you. And so it becomes more fluid, it becomes more interactive, it becomes far more engaging. I think when you've got something your audience is part of, they're much more likely to come back and give you more attention.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there, Matt. I love the example that you shared about, being able to go out and ask 500 people to answer these 3 questions and then be able to draw insights and tangible kind of actions from those insights, because it's almost like from a relationship building standpoint, it's, I think of a lot of content collaboration as being like 1-to-1 or maybe 1-to-2, where you're interviewing a couple different people, either for a blog post or a video series or, a podcast. But this idea of going out and surveying hundreds of people, you're effectively, by reaching out to those hundreds of people, you're either deepening or establishing a relationship with those people by asking them to contribute to the content that you're about to create at scale. Like, it doesn't have to stop at 500. You could ask 1,000 people if you have access to that, to that data, and can reach out to those folks, whether they're a part of your, on your list already, and you've segmented them a certain way to know, like, okay, people with this job role in my list, I'm going to ask them this question. And then it gives you a reason to circle back to them, because I would imagine those 500 people that you survey would be interested in hearing the results of, their 499 peers that also contributed. So I love that you shared that example, because I think that's going to help folks really kind of think outside the box in terms of the ways that they can collaborate with people to create content, because I think you're definitely a master of it, and you're doing it a ton of different ways. Matt, if there's somebody listening to this, they want to stay connected with you, they want to learn more about Heinz Marketing, obviously they all need to go and subscribe to Sales Pipeline Radio, because if they're listening to this, they need to be listening to your show. How else can folks stay connected with you?
Yeah, I mean, y'all find us all. Most of our content's up at heinzmarketing.com, HEINZ marketing.com. We got a bunch of, as we kind of mentioned, a lot of research and kind of big rock pieces of content, best practice guides, ABM workbooks, blog posts are all up there. Yeah, definitely. If you'd love to check out Sales Pipeline Radio, I'd be honored. It's just salespipelineradio.com. You can get on demand, past episodes, as well as subscribe to the feed. And on Twitter, we have a practice of just regularly posting 3 or 4 great sales and marketing articles every day. So just at Heinz Marketing, you can find a lot of that good curated content as well.
Awesome, Matt. Well, thank you so much for your time today, man. There's any time that I can pick your brain on things is beneficial for me, and hopefully a few others that are listening to this as well. So thank you again so much, and really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Digital marketing agencies have a tough job. You have to stay on top of the latest marketing strategies for your clients and your agency. What if there was a way you could address both at the same time? Imagine your agency putting out content with greater quality and quantity. Envision bringing your clients a turnkey solution for one of B2B marketing's fastest growing media strategies, podcasting. You know, all those clients asking for your help with their account-based marketing efforts? Picture being the first to bring them the idea of content-based networking, showing them the proven strategy for breaking into their most coveted accounts. Here's the concept. Sweetfish Media is looking to work with a limited number of innovative agencies interested in a new partnership model. We produce a podcast for your agency at no cost. You introduce the power of podcasting and Sweetfish services to your clients. Everybody wins. Learn more at sweetfishpartners.com.